Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I want you to picture a scenario for a second.
Mm.
Let's say you've spent the last 6 months of your life in a garage or, a cramped WeWork or your spare bedroom. You have built something from scratch.
Hi, everyone. I'm your expert today.
Okay.
And yeah, you've got the whole startup vibe going. The hoodie, the caffeine addiction, the code is clean, the MVP is finally live.
Right, exactly. And you finally get the email address of a partner at a top-tier venture capital firm. You spend hours, maybe days, crafting the perfect message. You attack your deck, you take a deep breath, and you hit send.
And then set.
Silence, absolute crushing silence. And
Yeah.
you just sit there thinking, is my idea bad? Is my deck just ugly? Or did this just go straight into a black hole?
It's a feeling pretty much, well, almost every founder knows. But the reality is it didn't go into a black hole. It went into a funnel. Okay. And it's a very, very crowded funnel.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking today. We're looking at the brutal arithmetic of the venture capital world. We have this really incredible breakdown from Step Up, one that essentially reverse engineers why some founders get the meeting and, why most just get ghosted.
What I love about Step Up, one is they really strip away the romance here. They treat fundraising not as an art form, but as a system. It has very specific inputs and outputs. And the first input they look at is just the sheer volume of competition.
And the math is staggering. The headline number they give is roughly 500 to 1. For every single VC fund, there are roughly 500 startups trying to get through the door.
And keep in mind, that is just the average.
Right. So I want to be clear. The mission for this deep dive isn't to depress you. It's to figure out how to basically cheat that math. Step Up. One identifies 3 specific levers that can help a seed stage founder cut through all that noise.
Which are violent growth, high signal introductions, and targeted outreach.
Yes. It's really about moving from hoping to get noticed to actively forcing them to look at you.
Exactly. But before we get to the solutions, we kind of have to understand the scale of the problem.
Right, so let's talk about that 500 startups per fund figure, because I have to push back on this a little bit. When I look at Crunchbase or, if I look at a local startup directory in a specific city, I don't always see 500 competitors in a very specific niche. So where exactly is this number coming from?
That is actually the first trap that founders fall into. They look at what is visible. Step Up. One makes this really crucial distinction between the public market and the total market. If you look at a specific VC fund's geographic focus, publicly, it might look like there are only, say, 40 to 70 relevant startups.
Okay, 70 I can handle. 70 feels like a race I could actually win.
Sure, but that's an illusion. That 70 only counts the companies that have already announced funding, or they're in the press, or they're loudly marketing themselves on Twitter. It completely ignores the dark matter of the startup universe.
Dark matter. I like that. What do you mean by that?
The companies in stealth. The bootstrappers who haven't raised a dime yet but are just crushing it in revenue. The spinouts who are just leaving big tech companies and haven't even updated their LinkedIn profiles yet. When you add that shadow market to the public market, Step Up, one estimates the real average is between 420 and 720 active startups per fund.
Wow. So for every VC partner waking up on a Monday morning, there are literally hundreds of founders shadowing them.
Yes. And here's where the math gets even tighter inside the fund itself. Let's take a typical early stage fund, say a $50 million seed fund. They aren't scaling their investments linearly with the market. They have a fixed capacity. They might physically write 20 to 50 checks total over the 3 to 4 year active life of the fund.
Wait, hold on. 20 to 50 checks total. You don't mean per year.
No, total, for the entire life of the fund. So if you do the math on that, they might make 1 investment a month, maybe 2 if they're busy. And they're receiving hundreds of leads every single month.
So it's not even a 1% acceptance rate. It's significantly lower than that.
It is. And then we have to layer on the power law. VCs aren't just looking for good businesses. A small business that throws off, say, $2 million a year in profit is an amazing outcome for a founder. But for a VC model, it's actually a failure.
Because they need the fund returners.
Exactly. Out of those 50 checks, they are really only banking on 2 to 5 of them being breakout hits.
So you aren't just trying to be one of the 50 who get a check. You are trying to convince them you're one of the 5 who will generate a 100x return.
Precisely. So the core question changes entirely. It's not, is my business good? It's, am I a signal of such extreme variance that I cannot be ignored? Because with those odds, being merely good just gets you lost in the pile.
Okay, so if good is the enemy here, how do we become extreme? This brings us to the first pillar, Step Up. One identifies, which is violent growth. I have to say, I love that phrasing. Not strong growth, Violent growth.
It's an aggressive term, but it's very accurate.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. This feels like a classic chicken and egg problem. To get money, you need massive growth. But to get massive growth, you usually need money. How does a seed founder hack this without a huge budget?
Well, first we had to debunk a huge myth about how VCs actually work. I think there's this romantic idea out there that VCs sit in a leather chair, sipping an espresso, reading your pitch deck from cover to cover, and really savoring your narrative.
I definitely pictured the espresso, maybe a nice fireplace in the background.
The reality is much colder. They're using tools, scrapers, databases, automated workflows. Step up. One points out that before a human being ever reads your About Us slide, a machine, or maybe a junior analyst, has likely already scanned your company for leading indicators.
So they're moneyballing us.
100%. They are looking for raw data that screams traction without you ever having to tell them you have traction.
Okay, so if I'm a founder sitting in my garage, what signal is leaking out that they can actually see? What are these scanners actually looking for?
Step up. One highlights 4 specific scanners. The first, and often the most potent for early-stage companies, is hiring velocity.
Hiring. But if I'm bootstrapping, I'm probably not hiring a bunch of people.
And that's a signal in itself. But think about it from the other side. If LinkedIn data shows a company went from 2 employees to 12 in 3 months, that is an undeniable proxy for something happening.
It means they have the money to pay them, or they have so many customers they're drowning.
Exactly. Either they have revenue to pay those salaries, or they have such overwhelming demand that they have to hire just to keep the lights on. It's unforgeable proof of work. Tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator or specialized VC data platforms, they track headcount growth as a primary metric.
So if I update my LinkedIn to show I just hired 3 engineers, that literally lights up a dashboard somewhere on Sand Hill Road.
Literally, yes.
What else are they standing for?
Revenue spikes, though that one is obviously harder for them to see from the outside unless you're publishing it or using a platform they monitor. But the big external ones are product reviews and web traffic.
Reviews make sense. If you suddenly have 5,000 five-star reviews, you're obviously doing something right. But web traffic, is that still relevant?
More than ever. Think about tools like SimilarWeb or App Annie. VCs pay for very expensive subscriptions to these data providers. They can see if your app downloads just spiked 400% week over week. They can see if your direct traffic, meaning people actually typing your URL, not just clicking on ads, is going vertical.
So the strategy here isn't to email the VC saying, hey, we are growing fast. It's to actually grow fast and let their own spy tools find you.
That is the inbound dream. Step up. One calls it absurd growth. If your metrics are truly absurd, the VC will cold email you. They have to. They're absolutely terrified of missing out on the next big thing.
But I want to push back on behalf of the listener here. Absurd growth is, well, it's rare. That's why they call it absurd. If I'm a normal seed founder, I might have good growth, maybe promising growth, but I'm probably not breaking the internet yet. Do I just pack up and go home?
No. But you can't rely on the violent growth pillar alone. If you aren't triggering the automated scanners yet, you have to bypass the machine entirely. And that is where the second pillar comes in, which is high signal introductions.
We hear this constantly. Get a warm intro. It's practically the biggest cliche in the industry. It really feels like gatekeeping 101.
It is gatekeeping, but step up. One adds a nuance here that I think most people miss. They argue that most warm intros are actually completely useless.
Useless. If I get my cousin's neighbor who happens to work in private equity to send an email, that has to be better than nothing, right?
Step up. One would argue barely. We have to talk about signal theory. VCs are drowning in noise. A random intro from someone they don't really know or don't respect professionally just adds to the noise. It doesn't subtract from it.
So it's just more spam, but it's coming from a friend of a friend.
Exactly. To actually cut through, you need what step up. One calls gold signal. This is defined very narrowly. Gold signal comes from 2 types of people. First, a portfolio founder who has already returned capital.
So someone who literally made them money.
Right. If a founder who put $10 million back into the fund says, hey, you need to look at this company, the VC listens, not out of politeness, but out of financial self-interest. That founder has proven their judgment.
And what's the second type of person?
An angel investor with a proven track record of backing unicorns. Someone known in the industry for spotting the breakout before anyone else.
Okay, but I have to be honest, this sounds incredibly elitist. It's basically saying, to get into the club, you need to know someone who's already in the VIP section. What if you're an outsider? What if you didn't go to Stanford? What if you're building this in Ohio or Mumbai and you don't know a unicorn angel?
It is elitist. I definitely won't sugarcoat that. Venture capital is fundamentally a network-driven industry. But step up. One's point isn't that you should give up. It's that you need to understand that networking is part of the work. You can't just build the product. You have to build the network.
So how do you do that if you're starting from absolute zero?
You borrow signal. You find the people who do have that credibility. Maybe it's an industry advisor, a smaller angel, super connector in your specific niche. And you win them over first. You climb the ladder of signal. You don't aim for the tier 1 VC immediately. You get the person who knows the person.
It's a campaign. You're building leverage over time.
Exactly. Because if you have no violent growth, you have no signal, you have zero leverage. You have to build one of them.
Okay, let's assume the worst case scenario. I don't have absurd growth yet because I'm just too early. I don't have the golden network yet because I'm an outsider. I have to rely entirely on myself. I have to go cold.
The dreaded cold email.
Step up. One says this is the third pillar, targeted cold outreach. But honestly, doesn't everyone say cold emailing VCs is a complete waste of time?
It is a waste of time if you do it the way 99% of founders do it.
Dear sir or madam, allow me to introduce my revolutionary platform.
Exactly. Spray and pray. Step up. One says cold outreach can work, but the bar for fit is completely non-negotiable. They list 4 criteria you have to hit: fund thesis, stage, geography, and check size.
These sound really obvious, but I have a feeling they get ignored constantly.
Oh, constantly. I've seen data suggesting that 50% of cold inbound pitches are automatically disqualified because they pitched a Series A fund for a seed round or a B2B enterprise fund with a consumer social app.
That's just laziness.
It's desperation mixed with laziness, but it's fatal. If you miss one of those 4, thesis, stage, geography, or size, you are auto-deleted. But let's say you do the homework, you find the perfect fund. How do you write the email?
Well, conventional wisdom always says to tell a story, hook them emotionally, talk about the problem, the vision, the passion. My grandmother inspired me to solve this problem, that kind of thing.
And step up. One says, absolutely not.
Really, kill the story entirely.
No story. That is the rule.
That feels so counterintuitive. We are constantly told human beings run on stories.
Human beings do. Scanners don't. And remember, the partner is basically in scanner mode when they're clearing their inbox. They have 500 unread messages. They aren't looking to be entertained. They're looking to qualify or disqualify as fast as humanly possible.
So what does the perfect email look like according to Step at One?
It's bleakly efficient. It looks like a status report. It should read something like, we are company X. We do this one-sentence value proposition. In the last 6 months, we grew revenue 20% month over month. We are raising $2 million. Here's the deck.
That's it. That sounds like a bot wrote it.
It sounds like a business.
Yeah.
It signals immense respect for their time. It signals that you know your number's cold. By stripping away the fluff, you're actually demonstrating a ton of confidence. You're basically saying, my metrics are strong enough to stand naked.
I really like that image. Metrics standing naked. It's vulnerable, but very bold.
If you write a 3-paragraph essay about your origin story, you're signaling that you don't understand the VC's workload. You're marking yourself as an amateur. But if you send raw data, you look like a professional who focuses on execution. That in itself is a very strong form of signal.
So we have the 3 pillars: violent growth to trigger the automated machines, high signal intros to bypass the filter entirely, and targeted cold outreach stripped of all fluff if you have to go the direct route.
That is the strategy. But I think we need to zoom out and talk about the mindset shift required here. Because listening to this, a seed founder might feel pretty overwhelmed.
It is overwhelming. We are talking about competing with hundreds, if not thousands of people.
But here's the thing step up. One reminds us of, which I think is vital. You aren't just competing with the startups in your city. You aren't just competing with the team at the co-working space across the table from you.
Who are we competing with then?
The global stage. Step up. One has this very sobering line. They say, you are competing with the fastest growing company in your category globally.
Oof. That definitely puts it in perspective.
It does. If you are building a fintech app in London, VCs aren't just comparing you to other London fintechs. They're looking at what's happening in Bangalore, in San Francisco, in Sao Paulo. Capital is totally global now. The bar for absurd growth is set by the best in the world, not the best on your block.
It sounds terrifying, but I also find it kind of clarifying.
How so?
Well, it kills the excuses, doesn't it? If the bar is that high, you can't rely on being charming in a meeting. You can't rely on raw potential. You just have to execute.
Exactly. It forces you to focus on what matters. Step up. One's message, ultimately, is about agency. You can't control the macroeconomy. You can't control what VCs are thinking on any given Tuesday. But you can control your growth rate. You can control who you network with. You can control the clarity of your communication.
It's about acting like a breakout company long before you actually are one.
Yes, grow faster. Be louder with proof. That is the fundamental call to action.
So, if we summarize the playbook for you listening today, first, recognize the math. It's not 50 to 1 odds, it's thousands to 1 for that coveted breakout slot.
Right.
Second, your primary goal is to light up the scanners. Hire fast if you can, drive revenue spikes, get people talking online, be an absolute anomaly in the data.
Third, leverage signal. Don't waste time on random intros. Build actual relationships with people who have made money for VCs.
And finally, if you have to go cold, be surgical about it. Thesis fit, stage fit, geo fit, size fit, and write an email that reads like a data report, not a fantasy novel.
That is the recipe. It obviously doesn't guarantee success, nothing does in this game, but it dramatically improves your odds of getting a seat at the table.
And that's what it's all about, just getting the chance to play the game.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up today's deep dive, we always like to leave you with a thought to chew on, something that takes this source material and pushes it just a little bit further.
I've really been thinking about those scanners we discussed. The automated tools VCs use to judge you before you even know they are looking.
Yeah, the invisible eyes.
Think about this. If VCs are using tools to scan for you before you ever send a single email, what is your company's digital footprint saying about you right now at this exact second while you aren't in the room?
That is a haunting question.
Is it saying violent growth?
Hmm.
Or is it saying silence? Because in the algorithm age, silence is basically the same as non-existence. You might be working incredibly hard in your garage, but if the digital signal isn't there, effectively, you don't exist.
Wow, so the pitch doesn't start when you walk into the meeting. The pitch started 6 months ago on the open web.
Precisely.
Well, on that note, we're going to let you get back to work. Go make some noise out there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.